Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow Masons, it is with great honor and enthusiasm that I welcome you to the Chancellor Robert R. Livingston Live Lecture Series. This esteemed institution, steeped in rich traditions of Freemasonry, has been a beacon of knowledge, enlightenment, and fraternity for nearly 175 years. Tonight, we gather in the spirit of curiosity and enlightenment to partake in an engaging lecture that promises to broaden our horizons. Tonight we have with us, our newly made Grand Treasurer, Right Worshipful Al Cortizo. Please give me a hand. Sorry, my apologies, it's so dark, but it's, to record it. We also have Right Worshipful Jim Mellis, who's the Secretary of the Trustees of the Library. Give him a hand. And we have Right Worshipful Cliff Jacobs, who's a past trustee of the library and a good friend of the library as always. Thank you. Our museum has almost 40,000 artifacts, 60,000 books, and a really excellent reading course, 17 different courses that you could take once you're a New York Mason. We also have digital content where people can read a lot of this stuff online, either on a phone or the app that you have or computer. We also have the genealogy program where if you want to research any of your relatives for various reasons, we will find them. Just try to give us as much information and we will find out as much as we can for you. We also have the full collection of the American Lodge research, both on Odillo, the digital content, and in here, which is a great idea. If you wanted to do a program for your lodge, you could go onto that website, search an article, and then find it on Odillo. And if you can't find it, you could ask for me and Alex at the library to digitize that article for you and send it to you. We can help you do research. We also have the Ars Quattro Coronatum, which is the international version. And we also have lodge founding documents. Most people don't know too much about what this is, but let me surprise you. Invite me to your lodge to do a talk. I promise it will not be boring. And come visit us when you get a chance on the 14th floor. The library is very beautiful. And take a tour of the rooms in this building, during the day when you can. And please support the library whenever you can. We're selling lapel pins and challenge coins, and now we have hats. And finally, our live lectures. Past lectures can be reviewed on our YouTube channel. This one will be uploaded either tonight or tomorrow morning. And please note that the lectures are the product of our lecturers and do not necessarily represent the views of the library, its staff, the Grand Lodge of New York, or any Grand Lodge. Tonight's lecture is entitled Masonic Initiation, the Business in Which We Are Engaged, by Thomas D. Worrel. This talk is a comparable analysis of the ancient mystery schools in the Fraternity of Freemasonry. Tom was initiated into Mill Lodge number 356 in Mill Valley, California in 1986. He is a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, a Royal Arch Mason, a member of the Allied Masonic Degrees, and an associate member of the Lodge of Living Stones in Leeds, England. Thomas holds a B.A. in Religious Studies from Maryville College in Tennessee, an M.B.A. from the University of San Francisco, and an M.A. from the Dominican School of Philosophy and Theology at Berkeley, California. He currently resides in New York City. Please help me welcome Thomas Worrel. I'm going to fit you with this. And you're ready to go. You're right here, buddy. Okay. Yikes.
I hope you can see me. I can't see you. Okay. I don't know if you know that the title that I chose here tonight is because I'm not that familiar with the New York ritual, but the California ritual, we use this phrase in our first degree, second section of the lecture of that particular degree. So I'll start by saying that This is a hard subject to nail down with any certainty, but hopefully we'll kind of get around some of that in my talk. In antiquity, the custodians of a tradition of initiation, that is, those individuals who understood and sought to perpetuate techniques and spiritual concepts that fostered the experience of initiation, organized themselves into what was called the Mysteries. These organizations considered themselves to be in possession of a special knowledge, and it would only be transmitted to others by special means. From the historical evidence that has survived and of which we are aware, the mysteries were quite specific and intentional regarding what the initiates were to experience. Also, from historical sources, it is clear that they were adept in crafting rites that brought their initiates to a new revelation or a broader and deeper vision of reality. The issue of the possibility, let's see if I can do this. The issue of the possibility of any connection of these ancient mystery cults in the Fraternity of Freemasonry has been argued continuously since the craft's inception. For anyone educated in both the Freemasonry and the mysteries, it would be difficult for that question not to arise. It is clearly a notion that has been studied, leading to different conclusions, ranging from downright silly to informed speculation. This paper will not seek to resolve this controversy. It does attempt to clarify why there is a controversy. The controversy exists because there are common elements, in fact, striking similarities between the societies, and there are shared or at least similar things recited, shown, and performed for the benefit of the candidate. And the purpose of such organization is to provide a means of initiation. Some of these things recited, shown, and performed for the purposes of initiation will be delineated and described also. It is my contention that the facts will illustrate at least a sympathetic connection, could we say mystic tie, between these two, let's call them societies. But I hope to show it is more than any chance phenomenon of similarity. This undeniable connection is in the manner each organization utilizes for the aspirant to undergo the experience of initiation. We can see the continuation of particular techniques, themes, and spiritual ideas that have withstood the passage of time by being periodically reborn under various guises through several initiatory groups. It is in the history of religious concepts and ideas, let me repeat that, the history of religious concepts and ideas. This is actually a discipline in the study of religion, in that we find a possible historical connection between the mystery schools of antiquity and the modern society of Freemasonry. Rather, there is any possibility of some secret historical chain of succession, or that the original framers of Freemasonry consciously intended to institute these parallels, or rather, there is some kind of psychological explanation of their recurrence as religious phenomena, must be addressed elsewhere. But before leaving this point, one has to cast extreme doubt on these parallels existing by chance alone. There is no doubt that Freemasonry was devised or developed into or became a society whose purpose was to initiate candidates. This was very the very same reason for the existence of the ancient mystery schools. The mystery cults were schools of initiation. The same is true of Freemasonry. What is initiation, and how is it, in all sincerity, the business in which we are engaged? What do we mean by initiation? The word comes from a Latin word meaning a new beginning. The Greek word means to accomplish, or more pertinent, to make perfect. There are many ways for which we may use the term, but I am using a specific definition here. Quote, the term initiation in the most general sense denotes a body of rites and oral teachings whose purpose is to produce a radical modification of the religious and social status of the person to be initiated. The novice emerges from his ordeal a totally different being. He has become another. This experience, that is by one of the greater history of religions and comparative religions scholars of the last century, Mircea Eliade, used to teach at the University of Chicago, I believe. This experience of a new life, or at least seeing life in a new way, is taken so seriously in some traditions that the initiated is given or takes on a new name. And we see that in just a nun takes on a new name. How many Teresas, Sister Teresas do you know? Yogis in India take on new names when they're initiated into like the Swami order. Buddhists take on particular new names as well. So this is a common religious phenomenon around the world. Reports have greatly varied regarding the value of initiation itself. Most reports indicate a feeling that something important and sacred was imparted to them as they participated in the ritual. Some, more rare, reported that profound spiritual insights occurred during the rites and that the initiates would be moved into visionary and sometimes unitive mystical states to come away shaken and awestruck. And that's a quote from Walter Burkhardt, a book on mystery religions, ancient mystery religions. There are reports the effects of these more profound experiences included two interesting results: direct knowledge, not belief, of the reality of the divine, and the certitude of the immortality of the soul, which are, of course, answers to two of the crucial questions posed to all petitioners of our society. This is helpful to consider initiation like two sides of the same thing. First, the phenomenon of initiation itself, and second, the rites and practices that cause or at least encourage its internal action. Initiation, then, is the beginning of a new life, an explanation of the stages of our growth in that new life, in the perfecting or reaching the fullness of being in that new life. We can look at human nature in a static sense and speaking of our being, our beingness. But we can also look upon it in a dynamic way as our becoming. Consider a candidate in his natural state as a crude block of stone, the very familiar scene here. Then consider the process of initiation as a process of becoming the perfectly dressed and proportionate stone, now ready for a higher purpose. An observation of nature shows us many similar growth patterns. Sometimes we see very marked changes from one stage to another. For example, the incredible transition of a caterpillar to the chrysalis formation and then the emergence of a completely new form, that of a butterfly, one of nature's most dazzling displays of its power. Now, this animal changes completely, basically dies within there and is restructured through changes that we now know of, genetic and DNA and stuff like that happening, and becomes a butterfly, a completely different thing than a caterpillar. These powers of transformation displayed within nature are present all around us. It is the contention of initiatory schools that there is a similar power within human nature. The intent of initiatory rites and symbols is to somehow stimulate or activate these latent possibilities and potentials. The one initiated changes and achieves another higher nature, or using traditional language, this change is equivalent to dying to the old and being reborn. You cannot remain the same and become better. Death, therefore, is the metaphysical door that many of the initiatory myths concern themselves with a change scenario. These myths usually portray the death of the cult hero, and then that hero being raised into a new life. An initiation, or initiation, is the entire process towards perfection, from the initial spark of realization of our human potential to the development of the capacities inherent in human nature to the fulfillment of the shared destiny of our human spirit. Now, the goal of initiation is a quote from probably someone most of you have heard of before, Walter Wilmshurst, a British Mason who developed let's call it a esoteric lodge of Freemasonry in England. He also wrote 3 books, 2 books most Masons know about, The Meaning of Masonry and the Masonic Initiation. Another one called Contemplations, which was a book that he wrote on Christian mysticism. Initiation implies a conscious realization of what in Masonry is called the vital and immortal principle. To be an initiate means that one has been intermitted and raised to direct consciousness of immortal life, and he can serve as an instrument or channel for transmitting to others something of the wisdom, the power, and the beauty characterizing the state of immortality. And that is done through, in the human person, through what the Greeks called the nous, and the Christian mystics have for a long time called it the higher mind. The nous, and a lot of times in translations from things Greek into English, they use the word, if the Greek used the word nous, the translator will write mind, and this just throws everything out of whack. So if you can think of nous as being this particular definition rather than just your mind. Okay? Immediate awareness, intuition, intuitive intellect. Plato distinguished nous from dianoia, discursive reasoning. Nous is the second hypostasis of Plotinus, the Neoplatonic philosopher. Nous is independent of body and immune from destruction. It is the unitary and divine element in the spark of divine light, which is present in men, humans, and through which the ascent of the divine Son is possible. The mystery occults of Freemasonry. What do we mean by mystery school. Mystery cult or the mysteries, these words are interchangeable. They were schools because people went to them to learn a special knowledge. They were cults in the proper and positive sense of the word, not the way most people talk about cults today, because they were usually centered upon a particular god, a goddess, or divinity, and we can use the term the mysteries because they shared enough common characteristics to be identified as the same phenomenon. But the original meaning of the term mystery is probably the best indication. The word mystery in Greek derives from the Greek word myein, to close, referring to the closing of the lips or of the eyes, an initiate or mystis. And to the mysterion were required to keep his or her lips closed and not divulge the secret that was revealed in the private ceremony. The vows of silence were meant to ensure that the initiate would keep the holy secret from being revealed to outsiders. Without knowing the exact details of what happened in the telesterion, the inner sanctum of the mysteries, I still think it would be difficult for the Freemason not to feel some sympathetic chord being sounded here. We know that mystery schools were so called because the rituals were secret, thus mysteries. An aspirant to the participation in the mysteries did not just show up and gain complete access to their teachings. Secret initiation rituals were a prerequisite to membership. These were organizations completely separate from the common religious practices of the people of any particular area. Like Freemasonry, it is not accurate to call them a religion. The mysteries were extracurricular. They were above and beyond normal religious behavior. The mystery cults were active in the Mediterranean region prior to the Hellenistic world age and remained active till the rise of the Christian era during at least several hundred years after the Christianity began. We know that the cult of Eleusis prospered at least from the 6th century BC, and that other cults emerged and flourished as well. Eleusis is sometimes considered to have been around in the 8th century before the Common Era. So it is quite an interesting and powerful mystery school of the day. There were sanctuaries all over the Greco-Roman world. Some of the mysteries had a central location where they met, like Eleusis, but others did not seem to have any particular meeting place at all. We are just now learning in academia that the so-called Hermetic philosophical schools did not have any temples. They met just in private at their homes or someplace where they decided to meet. Unlike Eleusis, that has a complete center for many, many centuries. Let's look at the variety. They're still not clear what instigated the mysteries in the beginning. This is sort of another mystery. There were several different mystery cults throughout the Greco-Roman world. The major ones would include the Greek mysteries of Dionysus and those of Demeter of the Eleusinian rites, the Anatolian Great Mother cult, the Roman Mithraeus fraternity, and the Egyptian mysteries of Isis and Osiris, which expanded beyond the Egyptian territory itself. But there were others, several others, in fact. For example, the Roman Bacchanalia, who were one of those that did not seem to have a geographic center, and the Orphics, whose origins are not clear, nor whose influence upon the other mysteries, as well as philosophers, was profound. They had a huge impact upon Pythagoras and his fraternity, and later upon Plato as well, by their own admission. Even so, one scholar likens them to the Cheshire cat, because you know it is there, you can see him grinning at you, but the more you look, the more he fades away. This is the picture of Orpheus, who is not clear. Our scholars still argue whether he was a real man, whether he was a God, an incarnated God in human form, or divine being, or that he never existed at all, and that other people wrote these things and called it Orpheus, or called themselves Orpheus, which was not uncommon in the ancient world. It was a token of flattery, actually. But here he plays the lyre, and he was so good at it, the animals would come and listen to him. The trees would dance and all that kind of stuff, right? So this is Orpheus again. You see the lyre, his scepter. This is Hermes and the wife of Orpheus and Orpheus himself. This is the Orphic egg and a sculpture of Phanes. Now, the Orphic egg was a part of the beginning, the genesis of the world. And so the beginning of the world, to the Orphic thoughts, was chaos. And that chaos began to be shaped on the ends, on the far extremes, or whatever that may be. And then they became more and more solid until it took on the shape of an egg, a massive egg, because all the things that are or will be is contained in that egg. And the serpent is the sort of the cosmic serpent that is giving it energy to hatch. In Tennessee, we call it hatch. Yeah. This is the egg broken, and this is Phanes on the inside. Phanes is, by the way, the first god, the chief god. And you see the serpent coiling around him to the top of his head. He holds the staff, he holds the scepter, and that's a lunar crescent over his head besides flames coming out. He's in an oval, which is the zodiac. And in the four corners, you see the four winds. And this is really the sort of the genesis idea of the Orphics. Now, if I can find my place quick enough. Most of the mysteries were open to both genders. Some were not. For example, the Roman cult of Mithras was only open to males and was very popular with the Roman military. This particular cult was quite widespread, and there are sanctuaries from the British Isles to the Middle East. Forgot these things. I put these slides in the last 2 days. I don't know if any of you saw the Peladon exhibit up at the Guggenheim Museum. It was about the Rosicrucian salons that were in Paris from 1892 to 97. And Peladon hosted these salons in Paris, and they had artwork and music and poetry, etc. And people gathered together to talk over this material of the Rosicrucian way. And these paintings are made in the last 120 years ago or something. So this is the one of Orpheus, who is in Hades in this painting. And where's the, is this it? No, it's not it. He is playing the lyre and singing to Pluto, or Hades. This is in Hades, and he's gone there to rescue his wife Eurydice. And Pluto, you can't see up in there, you can see his legs up in the upper right-hand corner, but the artist intentionally cut him off here, so that would be left to your imagination. But he was given permission to take her back to the land of the living. But he made a mistake, and against Pluto's laws, and he turned around to look at her to make sure she was still with him as he was making that transition. And she never came back with him. So you see the light illuminating him, but they're in the darkness of Hades. He, like a lot of mystery school heroes, was murdered, crucified, cut up, torn apart by the different other forces at work. And actually, supposedly the followers of Dionysus, the female followers, were told to attack him, and they tore him apart limb by limb and beheaded him and threw his head into the river, which somehow his head landed on the lyre, and he kept singing as he floated down the river. And then he washed up on the shores of the island of Lesbos, and there's a shrine there to him. And his head became an oracle. So, and that's also was one of the paintings exhibited in the Salon in Paris in the late 1800s. Now, the Orphic Mysteries have striking parallels to the Egyptian Book of the Dead in the coffin texts. This is very interesting because a lot of times in looking at the Greco-Roman world, you have that, but prior to that was the Egyptian world, but we don't want to talk about the Egyptian world that much because it's not the Greco-Roman world. However, Orpheus's work in material is completely known to be influenced by Egyptian religion and spirituality. And he seems to be a bridge between Egyptian mystery schools and spirituality and the Greek and Roman and also the other Mediterranean areas as well, which is an interesting kind of a recent development. This man down here, I'll finish that. In the context, the mysteries are characterized, you're talking about the Orphic mysteries, by esoteric, secret, forbidden, and unspeakable. The special states attained through initiation are claimed to be valid even beyond death. This Algis Uzdavinas was a Lithuanian philosopher and head of the department of the University of Lithuania, by whatever name that is. And he died several years ago, but he wrote about 6 or 7 books upon rebirth as initiation. Plotinus's Enneads, Theology, and the Ancient World, and so on. A whole book on Orpheus was his last book that he wrote, and he was around 49, 52 or something when he died. So he left a lot on the table, but he told his wife before he died that he had said everything that he was planning to say. So, but if you get every book you see of his, just a hint. This is the model of the site at Eleusis, which is out about a day's walk, since they used to walk it, from Athens to this sanctuary. The initiates would parade this pilgrimage up to several days of these initiations at Eleusis. This is an initiate being and flanked by Demeter, the mother goddess, and her daughter Kore. They're giving him a wheat stalk, and Kore is crowning him with a flower or something, which is kind of interesting to think of the mother goddess giving him something and her daughter crowning him with something. We don't know who the initiate was. This was in the Ashmolean Museum at Oxford, among other places as well. The Eleusinian mysteries lasted for well over a millennium and had countless initiates. The mysteries probably ceased to be celebrated in 395 AD when the destruction of the sanctuary at Eleusis at Athens, not by the Christians, but by the Visigoths. Alaric destroyed that sanctuary. And the Mysteries of Isis is another one. There was an exhibit at the Met not too long ago of a lot of stuff that had Isis, and including the sistrum she's holding up there. They had one of those at that exhibit. And this is quite a widespread mystery school itself. And this is a painting of what they figured is what the ceremonies seemed to look like from anything that they could gather that would inform them of that. These are some of the sites that are still standing of the Isis cult. So you see they had centers of, where the Orphics didn't, and the Bacchanalia would come just dancing through the streets and some. That's where. This is considered a legitimate report from an initiate done under a fictional account of what he went through. But most scholars believe this is like one of the only things that we know of from an actual mystery school. That's how good they were at keeping secrets and keeping things confidential. This is a quote by the Apulus, the Metamorphosis, and this is what he says in Book 11. I reached the very people that understand the Golden Dawn and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and groups like that might want to pay attention to this. I reached the very gates of death in treading Proserpine's threshold. She's the same as actually yet passed through all the elements and returned. I have seen the sun at midnight shining brightly. I have entered the presence of the gods below, the presence of the gods above, and I have paid due reverence before them. That's not much to know, but it's pretty suggestive. This is the Mithraic mysteries and their sanctuaries. The temple is called a cave to them, and it represents the world. There are at least one temple, Mithraic temple in London. You can still see it. It's kind of torn down to the ground. Matter of fact, I was sitting right next to it and didn't realize I was sitting in the temple next to the Temple of Mithra. But I think they found another one, in a cavern not too long ago. See at the end of the hallway here, that is the main, that's Mithra. And that's just taken out of some museum. By the way, if you ever see his head looking the other way, looking straight ahead, it's wrong. And it's because his head was knocked off. And whoever put it back on didn't know that he was supposed to be looking to the side when he sacrificed the bull. Notice above the dog, the snake, and you can't see under the testicles is a scorpion. And these are all astrological kind of hints. He's stabbing the bull in the throat. Sometimes out of his throat will be wheat falling out of the throat of the bull. Because the bull, well, I can just read it to you. Oh. Somehow I lost my way. Great. This is the main figure, and this is the main figure in the cave itself. It contains astrological symbols and the representation of the primal act. Mithras slaying the bull, that's the primal act, which brought our age into existence. Sometimes its floor is decorated with symbols of a set of 7 grades, which lead to the soul through its heavenly ascent. Now, there is some really good work that's been done by a professor in California, and he's done a complete kind of relook at Mithras and what the real secret was of the Mithraic cult. And it had to do with the precession of the equinoxes, which wasn't really known during that time period. Okay, the destruction and disappearance. Okay, these are just other slides of Mithras, the sun god. This is Mithras emerging from a stone. I'm going to talk about Plato in a minute, but since he is also influenced by Orpheus, just to get his stats down, Greek philosopher, those are the dates of his life, 429 to 347, a student of Socrates, a teacher of Aristotle, the founder of the academy outside of Athens in 387. Now, I want just a couple of paragraphs about the destruction of the mysteries. True to form, the mystery schools rose up and out of obscurity, grew to prominence, and died. One of the main reasons for its demise was the rise of a competing spirituality, that is, Christianity. It was a spirituality that spoke very much in the same language as the mysteries, so much so that many people consider Christianity in the beginning as just another mystery school. One crucial difference was that the mystery cults were inclusive as regarding the several religions around them. Christianity was not. Since the demise of the mysteries adversely corresponds to the rise of Christianity, it will be helpful to quickly recount the major milestones of that ascension. Christianity emerged as a growing religion in the Roman Empire. As conversion took place, the minority was quickly becoming a force to be reckoned with. And the Western Emperor, Constantine, became sole emperor in 325, and by most accounts converted. Most people think on his deathbed. Remember that a lot of his military were followers of the Mithraic mysteries. And so it would have been kind of difficult for him to have that army, standing up against him. He issued the famous Edict of Milan in 313 that legalized all religious worship, including Christianity. As more people converted, and especially the higher classes, the balance shifted toward the Christians. Constantine became a huge patron and built churches, sometimes by taking funds from the pagan sanctuaries. A succeeding emperor, Theodosius, recognized Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire in 380. Theocracy, in other words. Only a few years later, in 391, pagan practices were outlawed and their temples came under attack. The mysteries simply and suddenly disappeared, and by most scholarly accounts, the mysteries were obliterated. And then the final fatal blow came to the noble pagan wisdom in 529 of the Common Era, when the Christian Emperor Justinian closed the 900-year Academy of Plato. But being organic and close to nature, these schools were destined to rise again. Now I want to look at some common characteristics of Freemasonry in the mystery: secrecy, vows, and brotherhood. There were several common characteristics between the mysteries and the rise of Freemasonry. The most apparent feature is the secrecy in which both groups shroud their rites and the specifics of what these rites convey to their members. In fact, the mysteries were so successful in their demands of confidentiality that historians have been hampered in their attempts of reconstruction. Incomplete picture of their activities are nil. A bit ironic, maybe, but some of the reports of early Christian writers provide us with some importance of the secrecy, both of themselves and two mysteries. One of Freemasonry's great lights, Albert Pike, provides no less than 12 quotations from the early Christian leaders in his book, Morals and Dogma. I'm not going to really give you a lot of the quotes from that, but just the last quote that is taken from John Chrysostom in 354 to 417. I wish to speak openly, but I dare not, on account of those who are not initiated. Where the holy mysteries are celebrated, we drive away all uninitiated persons and then close the doors. Brother Junior Deacon. Directly related to the practice of secrecy is another shared characteristic, that of oaths. They are utilized not only to secure the secrecy, but also to promote the personal virtue of the initiate. The use of vows and oaths in these private rites are found in the oldest reports of religion. In fact, the making of a vow is considered one of the oldest religious expressions of mankind. They are two surviving documents from the cult of Isis of the oath of secrecy used in an initiation ceremony. The oath was made upon the personal deity of the candidate and not the cult itself. Burckhardt explains that this practice, the mystery oath, is built on the foundations of a previous and lasting religious attachment to the gods I actually worship. This is the absolute opposite of conversion. There is no unsettling or destroying of personality in mystery initiations of this kind, but rather a deepening or extending of the pre-existing piety through a new intimacy with the divine in both familiar and novel shapes. End quote. The mysteries explained to the initiates were especially sacrosanct. There were certain parts or aspects of the myths that were only told to the initiates, sealed by horrible oaths of secrecy. I do not think it is difficult to see a common thread here between the ancient mystery cults and modern Freemasonry. Another very striking parallel is the concept of brotherhood fostered through participation in the mysteries itself. Burckhardt explains again, the term brother, adelphos, is used even at Eleusis for those who receive initiation together. In Plato's seventh letter, he refers to the uncommonly close ties of friendship that develop through hospitality and common participation in the mysteries. There are symbols to enable the mysti to recognize each other. This may lead to some kind of familiarity, even among strangers. Things recited, the things shown in things in things performed. Just checking my time. The nature of the mysteries was left historians speculating and piecing together the best they can from what evidence remains to us. Being shrouded in secrecy, protected by severe oaths, and bound by remarkable ties of brotherhood, has left historians with many questions that may never be answered satisfactorily. And there are certain fundamental things that can still reveal very interesting aspects of the mysteries, showing common ground with Freemasonry. The secret ceremonies of the mystery religions, however, remain largely hidden from us. The Eleusinian mysteries, the mysti participated in rites that incorporate three types of sacred observances. Things recited, things shown, things performed, and that's their proper names. Although these three categories of communication apply particularly to the mysteries of Demeter and Kore, They may be employed to describe the rites of other mystery religions as well. One scholar gives us a more elaborate explanation of each category. The legomena of the mysteries were statements recited to express the deep truths of the gods. The things said may have been recitations of the Hagios Logos, the sacred account that provided the mythological foundation for the celebration of the mysteries. The interpretation of the stories of the deities, of responses to the initiates to the divine mystery, the mysti beheld, the decomenia, the things shown. They were replete with visual images, and the sanctuaries where the holy initiations were held frequently housed numerous works of art. Presumably, the beholding of things shown also meant that the initiates saw sacred objects previously hidden from sight. The dromena may have included a variety of rituals, a drama mysticon, a mystic drama, a theatrical performance in which the hagiologi of the mystery religions came to life in a liturgical drama. Simply put, these categories are grouped by what things were heard, seen, and done in the mysteries. The next question would be if we can find similar things heard, seen, and done in Freemasonry. As regards the activities within the Masonic mysteries, one only needs to point the next question would be if we can find similar things heard, seen, and done in Freemasonry. As regards the activities within the Masonic mysteries, one only needs to point out the prayers, the charges, the ornaments, the lights of the lodge, the officer positions, the actions of the officers in the drama of each degree. Here I'll only discuss a few examples covering each of these categories: the 4 cardinal virtues, the trestle boards in the Master Mason ritual. The grouping of only 4 particular virtues and deciding them to be the 4 cardinal virtues was presented as early as Plato. In several of his writings, as a reminder, cardinal means fundamentally important, essential, or chief. And so speaking of something as cardinal as in cardinal points of the compass is conveying that these points are highly important. Thus, the 4 cardinal virtues should be considered of utmost importance. It should also be noted that an older definition of cardinal is something on which other things depend. There's more symbols. I do not think it is any coincidence that the 4 cardinal virtues are presented to the candidate of Freemasonry in the instructions following his first step as a Mason. Joseph Piper continues, quote, "That team of 4, the basic virtues, which can enable man to attain the furthest potentialities of his nature. Is there a reason for their placement in the very first rite of Freemasonry, or is it just for convenience?" Listen to Piper's remark, shown about the purpose of those virtues. Its aim is to clear a trail, to open a way. Listen to Socrates and Plato's Phaedo, a dialogue of the immortality of the soul. Temperance and justice, fortitude and prudence are a kind of preliminary purification. These are not just nice virtues to possess. Thomas Aquinas extensively expanded the doctrine on these virtues. These virtues are means to an end, to the ultimate good, the summum bonum. As a matter of fact, it was argued that the virtue of prudence is the mother of all virtues, and each subsequent virtue evolves out of the previous. And that's an interesting point. Each of the cardinal virtues has 3 degrees of perfection. Perfecting these virtues perfects the human being, perfects the human soul. It is no coincidence that the four cardinal virtues are where they are in the Masonic system. This doctrine of virtue not only begins the purification process, but also crafts the soul of man to its moral perfection. The four cardinal virtues are examples of some of the things heard in the halls of Freemasonry. Even in tarot cards, in the Mategna, Torochi 1465, we've got the four cardinal virtues. There are several rituals within the craft of Freemasonry, and at least in theory, there is or can be a tracing board or trestle board for each. These boards are actual drawings or paintings on a canvas or board, used to be drawn on the floor with chalk, depicting upon each a conglomeration of the symbolism related to that particular ritual. These are easy to find on any Google search. Masonic rites are designed to take an individual through several ritual encounters. These encounters are designed to be instructive in various areas of human experience. Going through a Masonic rite is like swimming in a sea of symbolism, or like taking an herbal bath in and soaking in the properties of those herbs. So when you subsequently look at these tracing boards, or at least calls to mind the key elements of your ritual experience, they are also hints and illuminations of what someone needs to do to improve oneself in Masonry. The purpose is to look for certain interconnections and correspondences in order to facilitate a deeper explanation. The tracing boards are some of the things seen in the halls of Masonry. These are 1802, 1819, 1820, and then in the mid of the last century, both the first degree tracing boards. Second degree board, basically by the same artist. This one by Harris, I believe, and this one by a different Harris, as well in the middle of the last century. And then the third degree boards we'll be talking about here in a second. The third degree of Masonry is that of Master Mason, and is considered by most Masons, I would speculate, to be the central ritual drama of our craft. It would certainly fall into the category of the drama mysticon, mystic drama, in which the mythological foundation of the celebration of the mysteries came to life in liturgical drama. It is also a ritual that deals with life's greatest mystery, death. This ritual would alone link our craft to the mystery schools of antiquity, because, as I mentioned earlier, the theme of death and rebirth is common to initiation rites all over the world. One could find several accounts from ancient sources linking the experience of physical death with the experience of the deepest initiation. I think that most Master Masons would agree with me on that. In the comparison of the various third degree boards, one cannot help but notice the overriding depiction of a spiritual temple within the grave itself. The third degree of Master Mason is one of the mystic dramas experienced in the halls of Freemasonry. Here are the same two Harrises again. This is a Frida Harris, and she was a female Mason in England. And you can see the temple inside the coffin in all of these boards that I'm trying to show you. Notice the temple here, notice the temple there. Very clear what they're about. Well, maybe. So before I finish with my concluding paragraph, it's 8:30. I'll try to hurry through this. And I want to throw in something extracurricular, something that Wilhelm Schurz said and advised to his members of his lodge in Leeds, England. Oh. This is Walter W.L. Wilmshire, born in England, was initiated at 22. He joined the Independent Rectified Rite, the remnant of the Isis Urania Temple, number 3 of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. I think that was the one that author Waite had leadership of. In 1914, he published that book on Contemplations, a book on Christian mysticism. He went on to publish The Meaning of Masonry in 22, and 2 years later he did the Masonic Initiation book, and a lot of study groups have this book on their reading list. He was the founder of the Lodge of Living Stones, consecrated in 1927. He was installed as his first worshipful master, and 2 more times after that, and then he died in 1939. Well, I'm going backwards. And this is one thing he says about initiation. If the attainment of actual, as distinct from merely ceremonial or initiation in nominal mastership, be the main object of the craft, I'll repeat that and leave that negative sentence out of there. If the attainment of actual initiation in mastership be the main object of the craft, we Masons of today have one clear call. One definite objective before us, our own present day personal advance in initiation. At the outset of the candidate's Masonic quest, the predominant wish of his heart was light. The condition attained by the illuminated candidates is the equivalent of what the Christian theology is known as the beatific vision, and in the East known as samadhi, mostly in yoga. It is also spoken of the universal or cosmic consciousness, since the recipient, transcending all sense of personal individualization, time and space, is co-conscious with all that is. Now, there was a book written by a gentleman, a Canadian, but in London, he had this experience where he was just riding in a carriage and he had this experience. He wasn't a mystic at all at the time that happened. So sometimes this cosmic consciousness can be a spontaneous occurrence. Every initiate the world over is taught, this is the practical value, of bodily posture when engaged in this work of self-perfecting. Masonic labor in conditions of physical uprightness and mental tension, all with a view of promoting the alignment, coordination, and harmony of his mind, emotions, and body with his center. That is the same thing Wilmshire calls as the vital and immortal principle in mankind. And the posture itself then becomes a prayer, an offering up of oneself to be made perfect in all his parts. It is an act of true self-building, the value of which will only be learned by experience. But it's perhaps no easy task for novices at stone squaring. So in conclusion, like the mystery schools of antiquity, we take our candidates through the process of initiation. Then, as now, initiation intends to activate within us the powers that bring about human perfection. That is the contemplation of what we are meant to be. We have to exercise our craft to accomplish this. Although we fancy ourselves speculative Masons, our craft is not a building trade in the usual meaning. Our craft is the ritual. Through the workings of our craft, we transform the rough ashlar into the perfect ashlar. In conclusion, I want to close with the statement that I once opened in another paper. We must never lose sight of the high destiny of our fraternity, lest we cut ourselves off from the very roots of our lifeblood. Our roots are dug deep in the mystery schools of antiquity, whose purpose was to initiate candidates. And thus, let us never forget the business in which we are engaged. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you. Any questions? No. And please speak up. I'm supposed to have eyeglasses. I'm supposed to have a hearing aid. I have neither. That works.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Stand up, let's speak loud because
I was going to say fabulous. Thank you so much. It's a reminder of everything has a meaning to it, and it's not what we just got. This is something that has been perpetuated over the ages, even before we were here. I like to move forward over back, all the way forward. Great job. Thank you so much.
speak up though because
I'd just like to thank you for all the research and work you did. It's remarkable, very interesting. I just wanted to ask about the Orphic Mysteries, Fane's role in the Orphic Mystery, and how I've seen images of Fanes in Mithraism, and you've seen it in caves, Fanes. And I just wanted to see if you had any knowledge, or you could talk about that connection between Orphic and Mithraism with Fanes.
Mike, can you repeat that last part?
yeah, you faded off at the very last part between
The connection between Orphic Mysteries and Mithraism with the symbolism of Fanes, and what role that played in Mithraism.
Well, one thing is Orpheus was a great hero in the ancient world, and he permeated. Even the Eleusinian mysteries used his hymns in their mysteries site. In their initiations, they used the Orphic hymns, so they're already written by the time the Eleusinian mysteries were around, and that is 600 BC or more. And so all these mystery schools, they sort of, took upon each other's symbolism, and that's what I think is the key to why you're seeing it in different things. And sometimes I might even call it a different name, like Eon. If you look at Carl Jung's work, which is a psychological possibility of why these things keep emerging from our consciousness as archetypes, is because there's a picture of Aeon or Eon, which looks like just like Fanes, in that book, in his book on I forget the name of it. It's transformation. Sorry. Okay. Anybody else? Or is that?
I have a good question. I have a question about Fanes. I've also heard it pronounced Phanes from actual Greek scholars. And in the creation myth of Orpheus, what created Phanes was, they call it the potentiality. I wonder if that's connected or has a direct correlation to what Kabbalah would call the Ein Sof. Any
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Exactly. I can show you that in print with that exact
Thank you for the affirmation.
quote.
Anybody else? Victor?
Yes, hello. Thank you. That was a magnificent lecture tracing the ancient mystery schools and how Freemasonry is the repository of those schools. You mentioned the 4 cardinal virtues and that there are 3 levels of perfection to each. Can you elaborate a bit more on that, please?
I cannot.
Thank you.
But I will explain that. It's not what you think. Joseph Pieper, I'm not sure how you pronounce the name, was a scholar, great scholar on Plato and Thomas Aquinas. And he explains this whole idea that prudence is the mother of all virtues, it's included, especially the 4. And he gives a book with those 4 virtues by name as the name of his book. And he will explain why prudence is the first, and then you got the second, third, and fourth as they go in a development. And he's got another book on the theological virtues as well.
Thank you for guiding me in the right direction.
Tom, are you familiar with the New York version of the funeral service? That's a public service.
No.
If you think that our rituals are secret, basically everything that you said today comes out in the funeral service. That's actually public. So the most common repeated phrase is there is no death. We go from life to life. Stand up nice and loud.
Thank you so much. That was really.
I'm sorry I fumbled up there, and I was having a hard time seeing it. Go ahead.
I noticed in your biography that first of all, I somehow come across a few books by W.L. Wilmshurst, and because I found it on audio, and it was about the meaning of initiation, and I noticed that I liked his style of writing, and you quoted him a lot, and that you became affiliated with the lodge in England, in Leeds. Is that from a personal is that a background, or is that you wanted to be more connected to this great scholar in some way?
Spot in England? No, that's where his lodge is.
And is that where you?
It's in Leeds.
I think you became a member there, or?
I'm sorry?
Or you were.
He wants to know if that's why you became a member of that lodge, because of Wilmhurst.
No, I can't remember that lodge, and then I visited it.
Ah, okay. So his connection backwards.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
By the way, the book that he makes for Wilmhurst
Thank you so much.
is in the library's first course. Anyone else? Anyone else? Can you maybe touch upon a little bit more with the Orphic mysteries, where Zeus, but when he consumes Phanes or Phanes, he actually becomes the primordial being, and then later on Dionysus, and maybe that's what's behind possible inherited with Christianity, with communion, the sacrificial communion, with when you become one with God, or
Gosh, I don't know anything about that.
okay.
I mean, I do know a little bit about the birth stuff, the genesis of this whole line of thought, and it's just so incredibly. Well, there's different versions of it for one, and it's very complicated. I mean, very, very complicated. It seems like you're reading it, you're saying, I'm reading a crazy person as the author. It's amazingly how all the different gods and goddesses were interplaying and interacting, and what they had to do and what they didn't do. Because Dionysus was supposed to be, on friendly terms with Orpheus, but it was the Dionysian members that tore Orpheus apart and killed him, murdered him. So how does that jive with the Dionysus and Orpheus being almost the same God, almost the same deity?
Do you think that it's possibly a metaphor for when Dionysus is torn apart, Orpheus is torn apart, the Jesus going into hell, that this is all about going within outside ourselves and taking our psyche apart, like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly?
Biting his garments and doing all that stuff and throwing money at the garment. Yes, it's all. And researching this, one of the explanations that I thought was really interesting for people that are studying correspondences in the academic study of the esoteric Western tradition, the doctrine of correspondences has to be in there in the scholar's discipline. It's part of the scholarly discipline to study correspondences, because all esoteric practices have these correspondences, and they call these correspondences the divided God.
Interesting.
Gold, silver, gold, and the sun, etc., etc. All these correspondences, frankincense, all these correspondences are actually the God itself and divided into pieces. The middle, all the stuff you know as correspondences. I mean, Mars, iron, red, the whole thing. All those things, dragon's blood, incense, it burns red. All these things are part of the God. The God is just separated throughout all of nature. And so you got to work with that God. You got to put all these correspondences together. It's kind of interesting from a theology standpoint.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or want to make any comments?
Thank you very much.
Tom, thank you very, very much.